I am Margaret Hayes, 68, living in the bustling city of Seattle, Washington. I am a widow, and for over 4 decades, I have dedicated my life to building my boutique hotel empire from scratch. Every room, every corner, every little detail in my hotels was a piece of my soul, reflecting my hard work, determination, and vision. I never imagined that someone I once trusted could plot to destroy everything I had built. But that is exactly what happened. Life had taught me to be careful, yet I allowed a sense of trust to overshadow caution. Seattle's skyline, with its twinkling lights reflected on the waters of Puget Sound, always felt comforting, a reminder of how far I had come from my humble beginnings. Yet one fateful evening, that same city that symbolized my success began to feel like a place where danger lurked in shadows. I had always believed that honesty, hard work, and care for people around me would shield my family and assets from harm. But betrayal has a way of sneaking in silently, wearing the mask of friendship and professionalism. That night, I discovered that my trust could be exploited, and I would have to act faster than I ever had in my life. The fear that coursed through me was unlike anything I had felt before. It wasn't just the thought of losing money. It was the realization that everything I had worked for, my legacy, my children's future, and the safety of our family name, could vanish in an instant. I sat in my study, the soft hum of the city around me, and felt the weight of every decision I had ever made pressing down on my shoulders. It was clear that I had to take control, not tomorrow, not later, but immediately. Raising my 2 children, Evelyn, now 36, and Nathan, 34, was both my greatest joy and my hardest challenge. After losing my husband early in life, I had to learn to balance my career, finances, and parenting alone. Evelyn, with her sharp mind and compassionate heart, had always been a source of light in my life. Nathan, adventurous and strong-willed, often reminded me of his father in both temperament and determination. Despite the challenges of a single-parent household, I ensured that my children never felt the absence of love or guidance. We had our disagreements, of course. Late-night arguments about responsibilities, career choices, or even minor family matters. But at the core, our bond remained unshakable. I watched them grow into independent adults, each forging their own path, and my heart swelled with pride, but also a quiet anxiety. Every late-night phone call from Evelyn in Boston or Nathan from San Francisco reminded me that distance, though physical, could never weaken the emotional ties we had built. Still, the thought that someone could threaten the very foundation of what I had created filled me with a deep, gnawing worry. I realized that my children's future, which I had nurtured so carefully, could be jeopardized not just by chance, but by someone cunning, calculating, and untrustworthy. Those sleepless nights, once filled with worry about ordinary challenges, now carried a more sinister weight. My maternal instincts screamed that I needed to act swiftly, yet carefully. The thought of shielding Evelyn and Nathan from harm became my single guiding force. I had always told them that family comes first, that loyalty and integrity matter above all else. Now, those principles were being tested in a way I had never anticipated. Every memory of their childhood, scraped knees, late-night stories, birthday surprises, first achievements, replayed in my mind, reminding me of what was truly at stake. I knew that the upcoming decisions would not just affect me, but the lives and futures of the 2 most precious people in the world to me. The journey to building in nearly $400 million was far from easy. I started with a single, modest hotel in the heart of Seattle, pouring every ounce of energy and savings I had into making it successful. Every renovation, every marketing strategy, and every service improvement was a personal commitment. Over the decades, I expanded my holdings, buying properties with potential, turning overlooked buildings into flourishing boutique hotels. The wealth I accumulated was not just numbers in a bank account. It was a reflection of sleepless nights, calculated risks, negotiations that tested my resolve, and sacrifices that I rarely spoke of. I had built a team I trusted, nurtured relationships with local communities, and created a brand recognized for quality and care. Each new investment, whether it was a historic building in Pioneer Square or a seaside property near Puget Sound, represented a calculated step forward. My fortune allowed my children to explore their dreams. Evelyn in Boston pursuing a corporate career, and Nathan in San Francisco following his passions, without burden. I felt proud knowing that the work of my hands had not only created comfort for travelers, but also a safety net for my family's future. However, wealth brings attention, and attention often attracts the wrong kind of people. I had always been cautious, yet one man's charm and familiarity had lulled me into a false sense of security. That $400 million, the culmination of decades of sweat, patience, and intellect, was suddenly vulnerable in ways I had never imagined. The thought of losing it, not to market risks or natural disasters, but to someone who schemed behind my back, ignited a fire of determination within me. This wasn't about money alone anymore. It was about preserving the life and values I had fought to create. Evelyn's move to Boston was motivated by ambition and opportunity. She thrived in her corporate role, often sending me snapshots of her successes. From promotions to new projects, each one a testament to her intelligence and perseverance. Nathan, on the other hand, settled in San Francisco, channeling his adventurous spirit into tech startups and creative ventures. Despite their distance, our family calls, texts, and visits kept our bond alive. I took comfort in knowing they were independent, capable, and strong. Yet, their independence also meant that I had to be their protector from afar. Any threat to our wealth or security could impact their lives significantly, far beyond my immediate reach. The stakes had never been higher. Every property, every account, every investment represented not just my legacy, but their opportunities, security, and future stability. The thought that someone could manipulate, steal, or endanger this hard-earned foundation made me feel a mix of dread and resolve. I couldn't allow external threats to determine the course of their lives. My vigilance had to match the cunning of the person who intended to exploit my trust. Protecting my children now wasn't just a maternal instinct. It was an urgent mission. It began subtly. A former business associate, whom I had considered trustworthy for years, started asking unusual questions about my assets. His presence in meetings lingered longer than necessary, and casual remarks about investment opportunities or suggestions about my hotels began to feel pointed. I noticed the small things: a glance too long at documents, a hesitation when discussing financial plans, a familiarity that went beyond professional courtesy. At first, I dismissed it as coincidence or harmless curiosity, but over time, a pattern emerged. There was a calculated precision in his behavior, a probing curiosity masked with charm and politeness. He asked about hotel expansions, trust details, and cash flow in ways that seemed unrelated to any business decision. That subtlety made the danger even more real. It wasn't loud or obvious. It was quiet, methodical, and threatening. The realization that someone so close, someone I had welcomed into my professional and personal world, could have ulterior motives filled me with a sinking fear. I began documenting every conversation, noting every suspicious act. Seattle, which had always felt like home and refuge, now seemed to hum with tension. Shadows felt heavier, and every phone call made me anxious. I knew I had to act fast, before curiosity turned into theft, and trust turned into betrayal. The man I had once respected was no longer an ally. He was a looming threat to everything I held dear, and I had to prepare for the confrontation that was inevitably coming. It was late one evening when the truth hit me like a thunderbolt. I had been working late in my office, going over financial statements and checking hotel occupancy reports, when I overheard him on the phone. His voice was low, urgent, but every word cut through me. Once she's out of the way, the fortune is ours. My hand froze on the papers in front of me. The warmth of the office lamp suddenly felt cold. The comforting hum of the city outside seemed menacing. I sank into my chair, heart pounding, trying to process the words I had just heard. The man I had considered a trusted associate, someone I had welcomed into my business decisions, had been plotting against me all along. Fear gripped me, not just for my money, but for my children, my family, and the future I had painstakingly built. I felt a mixture of anger and disbelief. How could someone be so calculating, so deceitful? My mind raced, trying to figure out how long this had been going on, what information he had gathered, and how much damage he could already cause. I realized that the stakes were much higher than I had imagined. This wasn't just about financial loss. It was about betrayal, about someone violating the sacred trust I had placed in them. Every memory of building my hotels, negotiating contracts, and personally mentoring my team seemed tainted by the realization that someone had been watching and waiting for the perfect moment to strike. I knew in that instant that I had to act, and act decisively. There would be no hesitation, no delay. The survival of everything I had created, the hotels, the fortune, and the security of Evelyn and Nathan, depended on my next steps. As I sat in the dim light of my office, the full weight of the situation pressed down on me. Images of my children's childhood flashed before my eyes. Evelyn learning to ride her bike, Nathan's first soccer goal, the countless late nights I had stayed awake ensuring bills were paid and dreams were nurtured. All those sacrifices suddenly felt more urgent, more fragile, knowing that one person's deceit could unravel them. I felt a surge of protective fury. Tears pricked at my eyes, but I refused to let them fall. This was no time for despair. This was the time for action. My heart pounded, adrenaline mingling with fear and determination. I realized that my wealth alone would not protect my children. My vigilance and strategy were what would safeguard them. The betrayal had awakened a deep resolve inside me. I could not allow someone else to dictate the future of my family or take away the security I had built. The city of Seattle outside my window, which had always symbolized opportunity and achievement, now seemed like a battlefield. I envisioned every possible scenario: confrontations, legal battles, and the threat of financial ruin. I knew I had to be clever, patient, and strategic. That night, I made a silent vow to myself. I would protect my children, my legacy, and everything I had built, even if it meant working tirelessly in secrecy. The emotional intensity of the moment fueled my determination. Fear and anger had transformed into clarity and purpose. I would not be a victim. I would be the architect of my own defense. Alone in my office, the lights of the Seattle skyline glimmering behind me, I made a decision that would change everything. I whispered to myself, I will protect what is mine, and I will protect my children at all costs. I pulled out my laptop and began outlining a plan. Every detail mattered, from hotel shares to bank accounts, trusts, and legal protections. I contacted a trusted lawyer I had worked with for years, someone who knew the intricacies of my business and who I could trust implicitly. We discussed strategies late into the night, reviewing documents, contracts, and account statements, ensuring that every possible vulnerability was accounted for. I knew that transparency to outsiders could be dangerous, so I worked in secrecy. Each step was calculated, every transfer, every trust, Every legal safeguard was designed to make it impossible for anyone, no matter how cunning, to touch what belonged to my family. My hands trembled at first, not from fear, but from the intensity of the task. Every click of the keyboard, every signed document, felt like a step toward reclaiming control. I also thought about Evelyn and Nathan, imagining their reactions if they knew the danger that had been lurking around them. I wanted to protect them without causing unnecessary worry, but the weight of the situation was immense. The night passed in a blur of legal documents, phone calls, and strategy. By dawn, a plan was in place that even the most determined betrayer could not bypass. For the first time in hours, I felt a glimmer of hope. I had turned fear into action. The following days were a whirlwind of quiet action. I executed the transfer of all assets, hotel shares, and bank accounts into irrevocable trusts under Evelyn's and Nathan's names. Each transaction was carefully monitored, legally airtight, and impossible to reverse without proper authorization. I remained calm and deliberate, knowing that any hint of haste or error could jeopardize everything. Every legal signature, every bank form, every trust document was double-checked, triple-checked, and confirmed. I didn't inform anyone else. Secrecy was crucial. The man plotting against me had no idea that his window of opportunity had closed. I worked in silence, often late into the night, reviewing every transaction, imagining the moment when he would discover that his plans were thwarted. The weight of responsibility never left my shoulders, but it was tempered by the relief that I was in control. I whispered often to myself, "This is for you, Evelyn and Nathan. This is your protection." Each completed step was a victory, a reassurance that my children's future would remain secure. By the end of the week, every asset, from the smallest bank account to the largest property holding, was shielded legally and beyond reach. I allowed myself a moment of quiet pride, knowing that decades of hard work, vigilance, and strategy had culminated in a fortress no one could penetrate. That night, after completing the final transfers, I sat alone in my study, Seattle's skyline glowing softly in the distance. The city that had been both my home and my battleground seemed peaceful again. I whispered, "It's done. You are safe, my children. You're safe." Relief washed over me in waves, but it was accompanied by a lingering sadness. The knowledge that trust had been broken, that deception had existed in my close circle, and that the fear I had felt was real. I reflected on the journey, the sacrifices, the late nights, the small victories, and the constant vigilance that had shaped my life. Every dollar, every property, every investment had been built not for luxury or recognition, but for security and stability. And now that mission was complete. Exhaustion tugged at my body, but my spirit felt lighter. I had faced betrayal, fear, and uncertainty, and emerged victorious. I understood that wealth is only valuable when it is protected, and that love for family requires not just care and guidance, but foresight and action. In the quiet of the night, I allowed myself to breathe deeply, feeling both the burden and the relief of the choices I had made. The path ahead for Evelyn, Nathan, and me was secure, at least financially. But the lessons learned, the vigilance required, and the emotional resilience built during these days would stay with me forever. It wasn't long before the man who had been plotting against me discovered that his plans had been foiled. He stormed into my office unannounced, his face red with rage and disbelief. "What did you do, Margaret?" he demanded, slamming his hands on my desk. His voice reverberated through the room, filled with the venom of someone whose carefully laid schemes had crumbled. I looked up calmly from the documents in front of me, my eyes steady. "Everything is protected," I said, sliding the legal papers across the desk. "The assets, the hotels, the accounts. They are now legally untouchable, all under Evelyn and Nathan's names. His face went pale as he scanned the documents, the reality sinking in. He sputtered, searching for loopholes, something, anything he could exploit. But there was nothing. Every detail had been meticulously planned, every step taken with precision. I remained composed, every word measured, projecting both authority and confidence. He tried to argue, to intimidate, even to threaten, but I stood firm. My voice was calm, yet firm, a stark contrast to the storm of anger and frustration he was unleashing. Eventually, defeated and realizing that his ambitions had been completely blocked, he stormed out, leaving the office door to slam shut behind him. I sat back in my chair, exhaling slowly, feeling a profound sense of relief. The confrontation had confirmed that my actions had worked. I had faced him, I had stood my ground, and I had protected everything that mattered most. When Evelyn and Nathan arrived at the hotel a few days later, they had sensed that something significant had happened. Their expressions were a mixture of worry, curiosity, and anticipation. As soon as I saw them, Evelyn ran to me and hugged me tightly, her eyes filled with tears. "Mom, you saved us," she whispered, holding me as if she never wanted to let go. Nathan, standing beside her, simply held my hand, his eyes welling up with gratitude and emotion, words unnecessary between us. In that moment, I realized the magnitude of what I had accomplished. It wasn't just about money or assets. It was about preserving our family's security, our legacy, and our trust. Their relief, their emotional release, was a testament to the love and protection I had fought to ensure. We spent hours together, recounting recent events cautiously, sharing feelings, and simply embracing the fact that we were safe. I felt a mixture of pride, exhaustion, and deep satisfaction. All the sleepless nights, every strategy, every meticulous move had led to this emotional release. My children were safe, and the sense of relief washed over me like a wave. The weight that had been pressing on my shoulders for weeks began to lift, replaced by a quiet, enduring sense of fulfillment. Sitting alone that night, I reflected on what had happened. Money, I realized, can always be rebuilt. Fortune can come and go, fluctuate with market trends, and shift with time. But trust, once broken, leaves permanent scars. The man who had tried to deceive me wasn't just after wealth. He wanted to undermine the security and confidence I had built within my family. I understood that vigilance isn't paranoia. It is a necessity when your family and legacy are at stake. Protecting wealth is not merely about securing accounts or properties. It is about safeguarding the future, the peace of mind, and the emotional well-being of those you love. I also recognized that deception and betrayal often come wrapped in familiarity and charm, which makes them far more dangerous. My experience taught me to trust actions over words, to prioritize careful planning, and to act decisively when necessary. The night was quiet outside, but my mind was alive with the lessons learned. Every decision, every strategy, every cautious move had reinforced one essential truth. Protection requires foresight, courage, and resolve. The events of the past weeks reinforced a simple but powerful lesson. Always safeguard your hard work, trust deeds over words, and put family first. Love for family is not just an emotional connection. It is also a responsibility to protect, shield, and provide a secure foundation for their lives. Wealth and success are only meaningful when the people you care about are safe and supported. Betrayal is painful, but it teaches vigilance, discernment, and the importance of proactive measures. Life is unpredictable, and sometimes those we trust most can be the source of danger. But by acting decisively, strategically, and with love as the guiding principle, it is possible to overcome even the most threatening challenges. That lesson, etched deeply into my heart, became the guiding principle for every decision I would make moving forward. I realized that courage and careful planning are as vital as love, and together they create the strongest shield for family and legacy. In the end, Margaret Hayes, ensured that Evelyn and Nathan would inherit not just wealth, but security, peace of mind, and a protected legacy. The man who tried to betray us was left powerless, and our family remained intact. Every sleepless night, every careful decision, and every ounce of effort had paid off. The city of Seattle, once a silent witness to my fears, now seemed peaceful again, reflecting the calm I felt inside. My children's laughter, their trust, and their emotional release were the true rewards of this journey. If there is one thing I learned, it is that vigilance, love, and decisive action can overcome even the darkest attempts at betrayal. Our family emerged stronger, wiser, and more united than ever before.